Now it's time to prep and polish your elements so that we can arrange them into a seamless pattern. Before we do that, go ahead and save your progress. It's always a good idea to save as you go. So for me, that's just a simple Command S. So first things first, what we're going to do is adjust that color vibrancy. So like I mentioned with scanning, sometimes the original vibrancy and saturation of your colors can get a little bit lost in that scanning process, which no big deal. We can go ahead and bring that right back in Photoshop. So I'll show you how. So first of all, I want to make sure this layer is selected. If it's not selected, just go ahead and tap it once and make sure you see that bounding box around it. Command 0 to fit to screen. And so the first thing I'm going to do is open up Hue and Saturation. You can get there by hitting Command U on your keyboard, or by going up to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. So again, what I see here on my paper is really lush and vibrant and saturated. On screen, it's a little bit lost. So let's bring that right back. So with my Hue and Saturation menu open, I'm just going to click the toggle next to Saturation and bring it up just a little bit. When you have this preview box checked over here, you'll be able to see in real time the changes you're making. So all the way to the left completely desaturates your artwork. All the way to the right makes it very, very vibrant. We don't need anything that crazy, so I'm going to go back to the center and just bring it up a tad. I think 22 is a pretty nice sweet spot there. So I'll go ahead and press OK. And again, you can go over here to your history to see the before and the after. So very, very subtle changes, but that's great. And next up, when I look back over here at my original, I see the tones are pretty deep and dark in some areas. And I want to go ahead and bring that back into my scanned version. So for this, we're going to use our levels. So again, making sure your layer is selected. You can get to levels by hitting Command L on your keyboard, or by going up here to Image, Adjustments, Levels. Now this is the same tool that we used earlier when we were defining that white point over here. We're not going to do that this time. Instead, I'm going to focus over here at the input levels. So if you drag this far left toggle all the way to the right, your illustration gets very, very deep and dark. And if you were to bring this far right toggle all the way to the left, it gets very, very light. And this toggle in the middle is for setting those midtones. Generally, I don't really use that middle toggle too often. Instead, I like playing with the right and left toggles. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over here to my left toggle and see what happens if I just bring it ever so slightly to the right. I like how that's really deepening the darkness here, but I don't want to get too dark over here on my leaf, so I think I'm going to stop right here at 23. And similarly, let's see what happens if I bring my right toggle inwards just a little bit. I think I'm just going to bring it in ever so slightly. If I bring it in too much further, then these lighter areas just get a little bit too white. So this isn't an exact science. This is really just coming down to personal preference. This is me looking at my illustration, determining how dark I want it to get, how light I want it to get, how saturated, etc. So for you, just kind of lean into what your personal preferences are and have fun with it and play around a little bit. All right, once you've found a sweet spot over here, you can go ahead and press OK. And again, I'll show you before we made all of those adjustments and after. So very slight changes, but I think it makes a big difference overall. So we'll be getting into both of those tools a little bit later when we're playing with those color adjustments. But for now, let's go ahead and finish prepping our elements for the seamless pattern. So if you take a look over here, all of our elements are on one single layer. It's indicated over here on the Layers panel. What I want to do is separate out these elements so that I can move just one leaf without everything else moving. Remember, we're going to be piecing these elements together like a puzzle, so it's important to be able to move one at a time. So to do that, I'm going to use my lasso tool, which remember is L on your keyboard. Or you can go over here to your menu bar, select and hold, and you have your lasso options. The regular lasso means that you can just draw exactly what you want your selection to be. And this is great because it gives you a lot of flexibility. The magnetic lasso lassos around shapes, so this isn't me perfectly drawing, this is the lasso determining where the boundaries are. I use this one from time to time as well, but not right now. The lasso tool I'm actually going to be using for this is the polygonal lasso. This is the lasso that draws in these perfectly straight lines, and for me, it's just a little bit faster to use this one when I'm isolating out shapes. So literally the way it works is you just click your anchor points to select around your entire piece. You don't have to connect it perfectly to the beginning. You can just double click and it'll finish the selection. So like I mentioned, I want to have each of these elements separated on its own layer. So with my first selection completed, I'm going to cut it by hitting Command X on my keyboard and then paste it right back into place, which is Command V Shift, all in one go. You can also paste in place by going to Edit, Paste Special, Paste in Place. And just a pro tip here, if you ever forget a key command, they're listed over here on the right as a little reminder if you want to be using them later. So paste in place is literally Shift, Command, V. And there we have it. So now if you take a look over here on your layers panel, you can see that that hero element is on its own layer. That means you can come over here and click, pull your element around, rotate it if you want to. The important thing is it's on its own layer, so we have more flexibility. So we want to go ahead and do that for all of the other elements on our canvas. So pro tip here, right now this layer is selected, so if I were to, let's just go ahead and dive into it, lasso around this flower, so L to get to my lasso. Remember, I'm using my polygonal lasso, so if I were to cut around this flower and go to Edit, Cut, I'm going to get this error, and the reason that's happening is because take a look over here. I'm not on the correct layer. So all you need to do is make sure that you're on that original layer of the element you're trying to lasso out, and then try that again. Edit, Cut. Perfect. Remember, Shift Command V, we'll paste it in place, and now we have that front-facing flower entirely on its own layer. So I'm just going to speed this up a little bit and finish isolating out these elements. So making sure that main elements layer is selected, I'll press L to get to my lasso, Command X to cut, Shift Command V to paste. And rinse and repeat. Go back to my layer. Don't forget your signature over here. Cut, Shift Command V to paste. All right, let's go ahead and grab the rest of these elements using that same process. I'm going to press Z and pull in on these elements since they're teeny tiny, and then press L to get back to my lasso. And Command 0 to fit to screen. And I'm going to toggle on and off the visibility of that original layer. Cool, just to make sure that that orange dot is the last bit. You can double check by again having that original layer selected and hitting Command T to open up Transform, and you should see that that boundary box is only on that last shape, which it is. Escape to get out of Transform, and now we have all of our elements on their own individual layers over here, which is exactly where we want to be. And the very last step we need to do to finish prepping our elements before we start arranging into a seamless pattern is to turn each of these layers into a smart object. So in the next video, when we start arranging that pattern block, we're going to be using a tool in Photoshop called Pattern Preview. This is a really powerful tool in Photoshop. It's essentially what allows us to create these seamless patterns very easily, but the key to making this work is each of our layers over here, each element needs to be a smart object. Right now, they're not. We'll dive a little bit deeper into smart objects in our next video, but for now, let's go ahead and finish prepping our elements. So I'll just start with the top of the stack here, select that layer, and go up here to my top menu bar and hit Layer, Smart Objects, convert to smart object. And so if you look at your canvas, you can't really see that anything happened, but over here in your layers panel, you'll see this indicator on the bottom right of your layer thumbnail, and that is Photoshop's way of showing you that this is a smart object, not a normal rasterized layer. So we want to go ahead and do that exact same thing for all of the other elements in our layers panel. So there are a lot of layers here. I think I count 17 or 18. So I'm going to show you how to expedite that process by creating your own custom shortcut. So up here on your top menu bar, go ahead and click Edit. All the way down to the bottom, Keyboard Shortcuts. Toggle the caret next to Layer. And you want to scroll down until you see Smart Object, which, if I remember correctly, it should be towards the bottom. Perfect. Here's Smart Objects. Go ahead and click where it says Convert to Smart Object, and this is where you can input your own custom key command. So I'm going to think of a key command that I don't really use for anything else, which is Command Y. So I'm just going to type that action in as if I were doing the key command for real. So Command Y. And Photoshop is telling me that this key command is already used for proof colors, but I never use that key command, proof colors. Actually, I don't even use that tool, proof colors, in Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and overwrite it and make this my own custom key command. So I'm simply going to hit accept. Perfect. Now I can press OK. And now I can go through all of my layers and just hit Command Y on my keyboard, and it'll automatically convert to a smart object. So this is just a way for me to save time. Instead of always going up here to Layer, Smart Object, Convert to Smart Object, I can just go through my layers and quickly hit the key command, Command Y, and get them all done very quickly. Perfect. So at this point, we have finished prepping our elements. Let's go ahead and save. So Command S. And the next step is going to be arranging all of these elements into a seamless pattern.